and welcome to the podcast that is less Luka Modric and more Luca Toni. It's the big man up top.
Yes, it is.
How are you doing, Anthony?
Hi. Good to be here.
Now, you are not a usual regular voice. I mean, we hear you occasionally, but we've got you in as a special guest, full guest for the full episode. You're stepping in to Joe's shoes. How are you feeling about
I
it?
am very much the super sub and hoping I can net that last minute winner for everyone to be happy.
Absolutely, yeah. We've got a few of those to chat about. Luca Toni, my intro was from. Do you remember him?
Vaguely. He feels like one of those people that was always like, well, he scores a lot of goals, but is he actually any good?
Yeah, well, this is it. 6'4", obviously, classic big man up top. 586 appearances, 268 goals, so a good goal scoring record.
Yeah.
But what's amazing, right, is go on his Wikipedia page. He's played for so many teams. He literally changes teams every season and has about 16 teams where he's played 40-odd games and scored 20-odd goals for them. It's remarkable.
Prolific journeyman.
Yeah, exactly. Just never happy, never content. But yes, Joe is on holiday this week. He's in Copenhagen.
Very nice.
Which is in Denmark. So, I'm getting my Scandinavian geography correct this time. But, we thought we need another voice as well.
Yeah.
Not just you, Anthony. Because Joe's
hard to replace with just one
with greatest respect to you, come on. We've decided to bring in the very wonderful Sarah Hine from UCB1. How are you, Sarah?
Hi, I'm good, thanks. How are you?
Yes, very good, very good. Thank you for coming back on the podcast.
Oh, no, thanks for having me. I was concerned that I'd maybe burned my bridges there, but here we are.
Not at all.
Okay, great.
So for the listeners who are hearing your voice for the first time, tell us a little bit about your footballing credentials, not your actual job, Tell us about, who do you support? Because you're here representing your team, aren't you?
Do you reckon? Okay, so I'm a big Man City fan.
Yeah.
It goes back to my granddad. We grew up in South Manchester. Dad is a diehard fan. I genuinely think he knows more about the footballing history of Manchester City and just, like many people do, the really minute details of games. He knows more about them than he does my own life. So it just had to be the case that I would support Man City.
Let me tell you about this one goal from Georgie Kincladze.
Yeah.
That
basically,
sort of
yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. We are going to chat about being on the beach today.
Okay.
Talking about how we stay motivated. I think we're going to touch on a few teams that are maybe already on the beach. There's definitely a few teams that fall into that category, Anthony, isn't there?
Yes.
First of all, though, is we're going to start with trivia. So Bible Ballers, you remember Bible Ballers, Sarah, from your time on the quiz?
I do, yeah.
Yeah. Well, this week, Anthony is going to quiz me. I don't know how hard this is going to be. Joe's a tough opposition with this, isn't he?
Yeah. Well, this is Guess the Player with a Difference. So, as normal, the player will share his first name with a book of the Bible. But I decided to change things up very slightly because, as you know, whenever you hear me on the podcast, I am an agent of chaos.
Oh, gosh.
And
terrifying.
In honour of Sarah being here, I know that on Sarah's drive show, there's a little segment called Quizaroo.
There certainly is.
Ed and Joe like to come on and torment Sarah with lovely little questions.
Yeah.
So in honour of that, I'm going to give you two categories, Ed.
Oh, okay.
And you can choose your poison.
Wow. Okay, this is exciting. Sarah, are you going to help me or are you going to hinder me today?
Well,
do you want to be on my team? Or
I'll be on your team. I don't
Okay.
know if it will help or hinder because I seem to remember that I was teamed up with Joe last time and I actually got some that he didn't get.
Let's hear the categories.
Okay, your two categories are Golden Oldies or Tricky International Tie.
Oh, dear. Golden Oldies or Tricky International Tie? I feel like it's a Golden Oldies thing for me.
All right, well then you're not having my help, I don't think.
Let's go with Golden Oldies.
Okay, the question is, which legendary big man up top is widely regarded as Wales' greatest ever player?
Okay, so Wales have had obviously some fantastic players.
It's not a book of Gareth, is there?
No, I don't think so. Although to be fair,
no, there's not. I can tell you that much. I know the Bible bit.
Yeah. Well, this is it. I mean, there's been some great players. Hal Robson-Kanu, he was a great Welsh big man up top. I don't think there's a book of Hal, is there?
No.
Ryan Giggs definitely not a big man up top. Goodness me, there's a lot to work at here. I think we're going to need a bit of time.
I will give you a little bit of time to think about it, and we'll come back to this later in the show.
Superb.
How is that fair? I get 10 seconds in the quizaroo.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's not fair. So we're going to move on to our weekly roundup of the Premier League action. Now, I've got to be honest, it was Masters weekend. You know I love my golf, Anthony. So
Yeah.
I watched a lot less football this weekend than I normally would do. But there were some fantastic games, weren't there? We're going to start with City versus Palace. City 5, Palace 2. Obviously, Sarah, delighted with this result,
Yeah,
weren't you?
huge game, huge. I was gutted because I was celebrating my birthday, so I was prepping a barbecue, but had my eye on the score the entire time and was very tempted to just put my phone on flight mode after the first first quarter, essentially. And then KDB got a little goal, and my heart just thought, oh, well, that's nice for him, isn't it? That's nice.
That's
At least
lovely.
there's that.
Yeah.
And then it just kept coming, and I was like, okay, maybe the barbecue doesn't need to happen anymore. Maybe it's just the football.
Speaking of people who just couldn't keep their eyes off this one, I would like to include one Joe Rivers, who is supposed to be on holiday with his wife. He texted me on Saturday saying, "Oh my, Palace," and then nothing else. So I texted him back saying it was more likely than not, surely. Obviously, referring to City.
So
and,
are we about 20 minutes in, 30 minutes in at this point?
something like that,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
This is when Palace are 2-0 up. And I said, anyway, get back to your holiday, Joe. And he said, football is my holiday.
Oh.
I thought, isn't
Poor
that...
Beth.
Is that your poor Beth? Yeah. No, never mind. But how did you think City went about this one, Anthony? They didn't start well, did they?
No, it was really interesting because I feel like at the beginning, City they were having rings run around them.
Yeah.
Like Palace just looked all over them. They were finding space in behind. They was having a great game. And up until the point where Palace looked like they were going to score a third, but it got disallowed by VAR, like it was just completely Palace.
And then City sort of managed to turn it around. There was a free kick. Kevin De Bruyne scored. I don't know whether you'd say it was a great free kick. The keeper was at 6s and 7s a little bit, wasn't he?
Yeah, he thought that De Bruyne was going to go the other way and was trying to be clever and just got caught out when De Bruyne stuck it in. It was a really well taken free kick, clipped in off the post. But yeah, you feel like the keeper could have got a little bit closer to it at least.
And with De Bruyne, it's great to see him sort of answering the critics a little bit, because I think especially there's been a lot of love towards him since the announcement that he's leaving, but there has been a lot of criticism of him this year in terms of he's not the player he used to be, and very well, yeah, it's time to leave. He had a great game, didn't he, Sarah?
He had a great game, and I think it's one of those where when he came back from injury, I think everyone was willing him to kind of turn up and that it would be what we needed, and it just kind of never really came to fruition. So yeah, I will always have a soft spot for Kevin De Bruyne. So I was just, even when he hit the post, I was just glad that he had like an almost shot, almost like a mother hen of like, oh, he's trying.
He's doing very well.
Yeah.
Anthony, what about you? Where do you see him in terms of like the best midfielders that have played the game?
I'm a United fan, but even I have to say he's in the top 5 Premier League midfielders. His ability on the ball, his vision is doing something that often Pep's teams need. Is like that one person who's willing to say, okay, I know I'm supposed to do this, but I'm going to do this and it's going to change the game. And that's what De Bruyne brings to City.
I think what's interesting as well is seeing the two different kinds of City in this game, from the very, very poor start right through to how they were playing at the end with the energy and defending on the front foot. For me, it showed that this whole blip this season, it very much feels mental. It's like and when I say mental, I mean a mental issue. Like it's players that can't quite get in the zone, and then when they get in the zone, it's like, oh yeah, this is what they can do, So it feels strange to sort of see the mental block that they've suffered with this season, doesn't it?
Yeah, definitely. And it just feels like they haven't had many like moments where it's just clicked, and it felt like that was a game where it did just click, and it felt like you saw the team kind of come together. Because let's be honest, there were also moments before the goals, they were missing opportunities, which is what we've seen a lot this season from City, missing opportunities that you just think, oh, what are you doing that for? You totally missed that. But then someone else would come in, and it was just, the assist from Edison. That was insane. That's team.
It was, something special. Let's move on to Chelsea 2, Ipswich 2. Ipswich showing a bit of fight, but just way too late in the season to actually show any fight, really. This, for me, summed up their season. They lost a lead yet again. The most dropped points from winning positions. So they're 14 points from safety, and yet they have lost 27 points from winning positions. And for me, this feels why they've gone down ultimately.
Yeah, they play very nice football. They look very good going forward. And then they just get tired, it seems. Like, they just can't hold on for more than like 60 minutes.
I think it feels similar to City. It's a mental thing. Like, what do you think, Sarah, in terms of when teams just all of a sudden go very defensive? Is that something that, you know, I mean, because City have never been that sort of team to do that, but can you imagine being in a team like an Ipswich Town and then all of a sudden just having to go very defensive or sort of losing the bottle, so to speak?
It's a shame because I think you see the great moments of football when the magic happens and when they're trying for something new or when they're just kind of getting out of their comfort zone. And I just find it painful to watch when a team goes defensive.
Stay on that front foot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
When you're tired, it's not necessarily your body that's the first thing to go. It is your mind that's the first thing to go. That because you're pushing and pushing and pushing, you start making the wrong decision because you just want to try and get things going quickly again, force it, when actually, if they've been a little more safe, a little more secure, and just like taken a moment to say, actually, no, we just control this now. Instead of like dropping deep and just kicking it away, we try and control. Then I don't think Chelsea would have necessarily had an answer for it.
Just poor game management, really. Yeah, absolutely. A stunning goal from Sancho. Back to United at some point, do you think?
It's his one good performance in 10 that hopefully means he will stay at Chelsea.
Forest 0, Everton 1 is the next one we're going to look at. What did you make of this one, Anthony?
Oh, this was a dull game. This was one where I'm glad I was only watching the highlights because even the highlights weren't that great.
Right, you were done of it after 3 minutes.
Yeah, it was interesting in that Forest kind of got out-forested.
Yeah.
That it's two teams that want to defend in numbers and try and hit on the counter, and Everton were just better at it on the day. They were able to defend deep, they were able to break up the attacks in the right spots and then just attack with enough numbers to really cause Forest problems.
Really well taken goal from Doucouré in the final minutes. One of those situations where the ball breaks, Everton find themselves sort of 3-on-1. They create the chance, and Doucouré, just to slot it away as nicely as he did, was a great finish, I thought. Alcaraz looks a decent player as well, doesn't he?
Yeah, I vaguely remember him from when he was at Southampton a couple of seasons ago, and he didn't look that great, but coming back to Everton, I think he's on loan at the moment with an option to buy at the end of the season. He looks like a decent player that can actually like put some passes together, be the link in the midfield that they really just need to be able to get a little more progress on the field.
Now, this is 2 defeats in a row for Nottingham Forest. They're still in 3rd place behind Arsenal. I think we can all agree they've had a really, really great season and are punching way above their weight. The 3rd just feels right for Forest, and I'm just desperate that they don't throw this away.
The run-in's interesting. Now that there's 5 teams that are getting into the Champions League, it's been confirmed, I think, the past week. 2 have gone already. Liverpool, Arsenal, you'd say those are guaranteed in. But then you've got Forest, you've got City, you've got Villa, you've got Newcastle, and you've got Chelsea all fighting out for those last 3 spots. And Forest, they're the ones that are looking most shaky at the moment. Them and possibly Chelsea, you'd think they may be the ones that end up falling away. But no one wants to see that, but it looks like it might happen.
Now let's move on to Liverpool 2, West Ham 1. Obviously, Salah signing a new contract. That was the big news.
Yeah, very exciting.
Joe, absolutely delighted. I texted him saying Merry Christmas when it happened, and he was very grateful. Salah is just an outstanding... Like, we were talking about really great Premier League players. Salah's up there, Sarah, isn't he?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those where I don't know if people feel the same way about City as I do, because whenever I see any of the team, I just beam with joy, as Joe does about Liverpool. But there's just those standout players where whether you're meant to, really dislike that team, you have to appreciate just how brilliant they are and just the opportunities they create. And he's annoyingly fantastic.
Very much so. He had a fantastic game, as he has done all season. A lovely assist for the Diaz goal. Wanted to talk about Virgil van Dijk, because he's another one where the contract situation is a little bit in flux. And this is another situation where Joe just couldn't stay away. And actually, we'd made some notes beforehand.
Yeah, I'd rather cheekily suggested that while Salah signing is obviously worth it, that maybe the Van Dijk signing isn't quite as good.
Well, here's the thing. Joe read those notes and could not let it lie. And we received a voice note from him.
Hi Ed, hi Anthony. Trust you're both well. Just checking in from a lovely little city break in Copenhagen, just to make sure you're covering Sunday's victory properly for Liverpool. Virgil van Dijk with the winning header, captain really stepping up to the plate, earning himself his new 2-year contract. But interestingly, just scanning over the notes I've seen, is it worth him signing 2 more years? Now, let's not be silly about this. He's been the best centre-back in the Premier League this season. I think we can get caught up in a lot of this recency bias nonsense, but just cast your mind back to earlier on in the season when, where would they be without him? Sign him up for 3 more years, I would say. But Liverpool doing well to get through this Premier League slump, only winning 5 of the last Premier League games. So, you tell me, is it worth it?
Now, I think he meant 5 of their last 6 Premier League
I was
games.
going to say, but hang on.
What I would say there is I love this whole vibe of Joe clearly, like, I don't know, in a cafe.
Yeah, and his
Beth.
wife just sat there going, have you done yet?
Well, I just
Can we
thought
go to the next sightseeing point?
I thought it smacked of, like, you know, she just went like, Joe, I'll go to the loo.
Right,
and he's
okay,
like,
yeah,
quick, I've got to send a voice note in. Gets his phone out because it's a little bit hushed, wasn't it? It was a little whispery and you can hear the people around. It was fantastic. So, thanks for that, Joe. He's got a point, hasn't he? When we're talking about the blip that Liverpool have had.
Yeah, defending myself a little bit on Van Dijk. Murillo's been better as a defender this season, I would say, at Forest. But also the reason why Van Dijk has been so good over the years has always been, as well as him being big and strong and good on the ball, he's got that recovery pace. Like, if there's a mistake, he's the one that gets back and makes the tackle. And the past 6 months or so, he seems to have just been losing that a little bit. So I'm wondering, next season, the season afterwards, is that going to come back, or is it going to have to force a change in how Liverpool play?
We shall have to see. Villa cashed in their Southampton voucher away at St Mary's, winning 3-0 away at Southampton. 2 missed penalties in this one from Asensio.
I have a thing about players taking 2 penalties in a game.
Okay, well, you mean if they've missed the first one?
Even if they've scored the first one, I don't like it when they take the second one.
Really?
Yeah, I think it's just like, because you're having to change what you do. I remember back to when in the World Cup quarterfinals just a few years ago when Harry Kane took 2 penalties, and I think he scored the first one and then missed the second.
Yeah.
And that caused England to go out of the World Cup. I feel like that's an issue of, like, you're then second guessing yourself if you're taking a second penalty.
Do I put it in the same corner? Yeah.
Do you not think you're always second guessing yourself, whether it's first or second time? Do you not feel like that plays into the keeper's mentality of, oh, this person knows what they're doing, I need to be the nervous one here?
Well, coaches are always telling their players when it comes to penalties, just focus on what you've trained.
Yeah.
And you always train, unless you're as good as like a Bruno Fernandes or an Ivan Toney, who can basically wait until the goalkeeper dives. You have to basically just shoot where you want to shoot. And if you think about it too much, you're going to miss.
Let's touch on Ramsdale. We were talking about goalkeepers there. What do we think about him? Where does he go after? He has this habit of playing for clubs that get relegated, isn't it?
It's kind of sad now. This is the 3rd club he's been relegated with from the Premier League. And he's
at a certain point, you must feel like it's personal.
Yeah. And I feel bad for him because he is a good goalkeeper. Like, it was a little odd how he just kind of got pushed out of Arsenal. Even though Raya, he's probably a better goalkeeper, it felt a little weird. But to go to Southampton when you know what situation Southampton are going to be in, it felt like an odd career choice. And I don't know where he goes from this. Like, I mean, there are clubs which need goalkeepers. Manchester United. I don't say that with any joy. But it's going to be interesting to see where he ends up.
I think that would be a great signing. We're going to move on to a bit of a larger conversation, Sarah, where we're going to talk about motivation and how teams stay motivated, how people stay motivated, how we all stay motivated in our work and career. But I'm going to ask the question, Southampton, what do we think they're playing for at this point? Like, try and put yourself into like their headspace as an athlete.
I think the fans, partly, I think you probably feel some responsibility for them of, look, there's essentially nothing to lose here in the position that we're in. We can't get any lower, so let's just give it our all. So, I don't know, maybe there's a sense of freedom there as well. I don't know. Look, as someone who is obviously not a player, I can't imagine if there is or isn't the freedom alongside the pressure, because there must be immense pressure, but does it get to a point where that pressure then is just gone? Because then you're like, well, let's just give it everything we've got, but then you're going to get critiqued either way, so it's just a bit of an impossible scenario to be in.
Yeah. And Anthony, we're going to touch really briefly on these last couple of fixtures. Arsenal, Brentford, 1 each. That feels like Arsenal more focused on the Champions League.
Yeah, I think so. They had a great result against Real Madrid in the week, and while you think they'd be through on that, like, they've still got to be a little bit careful about the return tie. So it felt like they'd taken their foot off the gas a little bit, made a few changes, and this wasn't a really high-quality game, but both of the goals that were scored were pretty good. A lovely counter-attacking move from Arsenal.
It would be unfair of me to not mention Man United losing 4-1 to Newcastle.
Yeah, again.
I'm sorry, mate. But
right. It was a lot of changes, but Newcastle actually had something to play for in this game, chasing Champions League. United, they had a good result as well in the week, even though there were 2 goalkeeping calamities in the game, 2-2 against Lyon. So they're really looking to play in the next game, so they rested a lot of players, even putting Harry Amas on for his first start in a Manchester United shirt.
The thing that was most upsetting, that I would find most upsetting if I was a United fan, is the Harvey Barnes goal, because there was just a real sense of apathy. He was just allowed to pick the ball up and just sort of run towards the United defence, and it wasn't even like they stood there. They parted like the Red Sea, and he just went straight through and scored.
Yeah, and I think you can tell that there were players there that know that they're leaving the club already in the summer. It's not that they're not giving the effort, it's just that they don't have the belief anymore because they know they're leaving.
I thought this would be a really good opportunity to discuss this idea of motivation, because it's something that we all have to deal with in life. None of us are professional athletes. I know you play netball, Sarah, but it's not exactly the same thing, But we're not in that place where we can say how it feels to be in a United player's shoes. But we all know what it feels like to turn up to work and either be motivated or not motivated. So I thought it would just be great to have a chat with you, Sarah. You're somebody who is very good at your job.
Lacking in motivation.
No, not at all. But I thought we could have a really good discussion about this. So you're a presenter here at UCB. You present the Drive Show on UCB1. I'd just like to start by just finding out a little bit about how and why you got into broadcasting, because this is one of those industries where it feels like a sort of a passion, doesn't it? You don't just sort of fall into broadcasting.
That's interesting that you say that, because I feel like I kind of did. I always loved entertaining, was, I would say, quiet and reserved in front of people for the most part, but stick me on a stage and tell me that I've got to entertain people and I know what I'm doing. And I wanted to get into acting, and was just a little bit concerned that I would lose myself and it would really affect my self-esteem, because I've seen lots of people go to drama school and it really affected them as people, and they kind of came out of it as different people than who they went in. And I didn't want that to happen to me. So was very prayerful about it. And I'd had so many people over a bunch of years, from kind of going from teen years into adulthood, but a bizarre amount of people say that they thought I should be a presenter and saying you should get into presenting. And actually, it was never radio. They always said, you should be a TV presenter. And I was like, well, how on earth do you be a TV? How do you get into that? And it was basically my dentist was the dentist of the old Drive presenter before I joined UCB, okay. And said that I could contact her, and I just said, look, I'd love some experience. And at the same time, I was doing extras work in TV. So if you go back in the archives of Hollyoaks, you might find me.
Okay. Having a latte in the
yeah. And at some very dramatic weddings that didn't happen in the end. And also doing gig work. So I was in a function band. So very much love entertaining, love being able to provide fun for people, and I guess relief from the stress of life. So started volunteering at UCB, and the UCB were like, well, why don't we just train you whilst you're here and see what happens? And it just kind of went from there. They needed a presenter. I'd gained the skills. I actually loved what I was learning and what I was doing, and I was like, yeah, this is great. This is it. Let's go for it.
So where did that turn into then, in terms of you seeing this as a career I'm pursuing and, starting to make longer term plans rather than just being here and falling into it?
Sure. Well, I don't actually know if I ever made longer term plans, because I think I joined at the age of 20, so I was young. So I had the luxury of kind of figuring it out at the time, and I was offered a role. I think they thought, well, we know that she can do it, so let's just see if she wants it. I foolishly responded to that by saying, let me pray about it. I just want to make sure that God doesn't want me in Hollywood getting Oscars.
Yes, exactly.
Okay? And then I phoned my mum and she was like, are you daft? Take the role. So I did, with the idea of I was still doing extras work, I was still doing function band stuff. So I kind of could see where it would go, and if it all kind of went off the rails, then that was fine. But I loved it. It was great, and I just kept learning, and I just thought, actually, this is brilliant, and I want to stick at this, and I think this is it for now.
let's bring it back to this topic of motivation. How do you stay motivated day to day? You know, on a Monday morning, on a Thursday afternoon, how do you keep motivated?
I would actually say that I'm most motivated when life is really difficult outside of work, when things are going horrendously wrong, because loads of people are going to have really difficult trials in life. And knowing that they're the people that are tuning into the show, knowing how I felt, I knew that if I tune into radio, I wanted music that was going to help me process my emotions, but also pick me up when I needed it. Someone that was going to be comforting to listen to, but also entertaining so that I didn't stay down in the dumps. But then also, I needed God in my situation. So I was like, well, actually, I'm able to do this for other people who might be feeling this way. So that's a huge thing of actually when trials come, I find that really motivating for my job, because I want to be there to pick people up, bring light relief, but also bring Jesus into the situation. And also, sometimes it's really challenging. When the sun is out, my motivation is sky high. I'm like, life is great. I can do my job. When it's grey and it's a Monday and actually life's not great, but it's not awful and it's just fine, that's difficult. And I'll be honest, that is more of a struggle. But it's then just remembering, okay, well, how did I feel when I wanted to bring the goodness and the entertainment?
So I feel like that's the equivalent, you know, in football terms, for the players getting a real sense of how the fans are feeling. It's that put yourself in the shoes of the supporters who've just travelled 100 miles to come. You know, what do they need from me? Like, how can my performance impact these loyal fans? You're thinking about the listener and about what position they're in and yeah, what you can bring to them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I don't know if you ever see those videos on socials where footballers meet the fans, whether it's someone who's been a lifelong fan and they just turn up in their living room, or whether it's someone who's entered a competition, or I don't know, but you just see the pure joy. And I think that must be so important for the team players and also the people who work at the clubs to actually meet those people and remember why they're doing it. Obviously, the pay is going to be incredible and a huge motivator for them, and they love the game, but it's also got to be for like the roar in the stadium and the atmosphere in that moment they walk out onto the pitch, and just the whole atmosphere, bringing it all together. It can't just be for the love of the game. It has to be everything coming together.
You'll have days where motivation is not good.
Definitely.
You know, days do you find it a struggle to get motivated?
I just think it's when there's nothing in particular that's exciting or awful, and you're just in that middle of the road where it's easy to get complacent.
Yeah.
And you're just, like we've been talking about with the teams, where there's nothing to really play for or be motivated by, or nothing to avoid that's disastrous. And it is difficult, but also it's finding those small things then. So whether it's setting a small goal, so whether it's if one person gets in touch and interacts with something, then great. Or if one person says that they're enjoying the show. So maybe for a team, it's actually, okay, well, actually we want to get higher than the person that we're equal on with scores, whether it's, or we want to actually improve our goal difference. And it's creating those kind of small things. But for me, it's obviously not goal difference.
It seems it's also about that you have smaller goals, but you also have this longer term vision. So for teams, it's not just like, okay, how are we going to do in the next game? It's going to be how are we going to do in the rest of the season, or how are we even going to do next season? And for us, it's like, well, it's doing the day to day, but it's also thinking, how am I going to be able to be a good part of a Christian life? How am I going to be honouring God day to day throughout the rest of my life, not just what am I doing in this exact moment? I think that can give you a lot of motivation of seeing the bigger picture and saying, oh, it's not just about how I'm doing today, it's about how I'm going to be doing in a week, a month, or even a year.
Sure. And also with the whole personal life things and the striving towards God, those moments when we do struggle with things and when we question things and when we're like, okay, actually, how am I supposed to respond in line with what the Bible says? I think that's really helpful for me. It takes away that complacency and it keeps that conversation and that fight of being a good disciple and being a good Christian, of actually, okay, I've got something that I need to figure out here, something that I need to push forwards through. And I think, well, we all go through those times. So that's something where I can bring it to the listener or relate in a certain way, or yeah.
There's a really interesting verse in Colossians 3:23. And actually, I think this is way more challenging on the second and third read than it is the first, which says, whatever you do, work heartily as for the Lord and not for men. And I think that is really challenging because sometimes we can just go, I work here or whatever, and compartmentalize that away from our faith. But in this verse, it says, no, whatever you do, whether you're a teacher, a lawyer, a bin man, you know, whatever, do it as if you were doing that job for God. and all of a sudden you go, oh gosh, I should. And it's sort of brilliant and terrifying all at the same time, isn't it?
Yeah, massively. And even in the average stuff, it matters when you're doing it for God. And even if it is turning up to a game at the weekend, if your team loses, how are you responding in that moment? How are you walking out of the stadium with the people that you sit next to every day that you go to the game? If you've got friends around to watch the game, how are you reacting? And how are you still, passionate for your team, but also glorifying God in your response?
What do you think about goal setting and about planning? Like, we were talking about practical ways that you can stay motivated. What about like writing stuff down and having like weekly goals, monthly goals, yearly goals? What do you think about that sort of stuff?
I think that's really helpful. I also think it's just good to switch it up a little bit. So even if your goals stay the same, just add something different into your routine that maybe changes things up a little bit. So even if it's not to do with work or not to do with family life, creating another personal goal outside of that. So actually maybe it's on the way to the post box, you're going to purposefully try and just smile and say hi to someone. I don't know about you, but I just love it when actually a stranger interacts with me. And maybe that's just something that will change a small bit of your day that then gives you a little bit of motivation to then go, okay, that's done. Let's add another little extra goal.
There's a few really interesting verses, particularly in Proverbs, around this. In Proverbs 21, verse 5, it says, "The plans of the diligent lead to profit, as surely haste leads to poverty." And then in Proverbs 16, verse 9, it says, "In their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." And I think, again, on first read, you can sort of look at those two verses and go, they contradict one another. One is saying that planning is good, and the other one is saying don't bother planning. And actually, I don't think that's what it's saying. I think it's saying that planning is good, yes, go and do it, but actually planning is nothing compared to listening to the Lord, and we should be planning but also keeping our spirits in tune with his and following him wherever he goes, even if that deviates us away from our plans that we've come up with.
Definitely. And I think if you are in tune with God and you're making plans, then they will fall in line with God's will anyway. But it's really important to still be praying, God, if this is your will, bless it. If not, take it away. And we so need to hold on to things loosely in that sense, because we are only given opportunities because God has allowed us to have those opportunities. Everything we have is God given. So then we also have to realise that therefore we praise God for that and we give it back to God. And if it's taken away, it's not ours that he's taken away. There's something else that he has for us.
Okay, Ed, we are back with Bible Ballers, back with our trivia.
Here we go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do want to apologise because this is quite a difficult one, I think. It is someone who was retired before we were even born.
Okay.
So it's a little bit tricky, but I think when someone's as legendary as this, I feel it's fair game.
Yeah, okay. Fair enough. Do you want to read the question out again?
Yes. Which legendary big man up top is widely regarded as Wales' greatest ever player?
Now, you've already said, Sarah, you're not helping me here, are you?
No,
Welsh
absolutely
players?
not.
No.
Well, I don't think if it's someone who's retired before you were born, I don't know that much help either.
Well, so I've got three names.
Is it Bobby Charlton?
I've got three names, and I think they're all a good shout, to be fair. But, so my three names are, the first one that came to mind was John Hartson. Big man up top, great player. Wales' greatest ever player? I wouldn't say so. Then you've got Mark Hughes. He's up there. Played for Barcelona, played for Bayern Munich, played for Manchester United. I don't think it's him. I think it is John Toshak. That's who I'm going to go for.
Ooh, that's a good guess. Unfortunately, it's not the right answer.
Come on.
It's a very good guess. This player scored over 150 goals for Leeds, over 100 goals for Juventus in the 1940s and 1950s.
Oh, come on. I've been absolutely done here. Keep going.
It is John Charles.
Oh, John Charles, yes. Okay, fair. Well, it's not fair. I think I've been absolutely done there. But what a player he was. Fair play.
I think Joe will agree with me, and he will forgive me for my comments on Virgin van Dijk for that one.
Okay, yeah, no, you're very much following in Joe's footsteps with that. But thank you for that, Anthony, and thank you, Sarah, for joining us on the podcast today.
No, thank you for having me. I'm also glad you know how it feels to be harshly quizzed now.
That's fine. I'm used to it. But
you're going to find the motivation, aren't you? Whether it's in the big goals or the small steps.
To get better at the quiz. Thank you for listening to The Big Man Up Top. There will be a special episode next week because of Easter, and we want to spend some time with our families and whatnot. But if you want to get in touch with the show, please ping us an email to podcasts@ucb.co.uk. Please follow, subscribe, give us good reviews, all that lovely stuff. This will help us to get the word out, and make sure you tell your mates about the podcast. Also, a huge thank you to our producer Anthony.
Thank you.
And again, a thank you, Sarah, for joining us.
Thank you.
So from all of us here at The Big Man Up Top, we wish you a happy Easter, and we will catch you very soon.
Bye.
Bye.